So I got the request to show how to effectively use breakout rooms and demonstrate some activities that could help an English teacher do a lesson on the American Renaissance in literature and transcendentalism. And I had to educate myself first to even find out what that stuff was. So I hope I did it a little bit of justice here to give you some examples of how you can use breakout rooms with this topic. So first of all, whenever if I was teaching an English class and I was introducing this huge subject and the poet Emerson and one of his poems, I would want to build up as much background knowledge as possible. And I think using breakout rooms is an effective way to build background knowledge. The kids can move about through the rooms as they choose in no particular order. They would be responsible for the information that is in that room or whatever the instructions are for the particular room, so that they are getting the information that the teacher does want them to get out of the breakout room activities. And there can be an assignment that needs to be turned in or something to hold them accountable. But as far as what I designed here, this is just quick and dirty of how I would use breakout rooms to build some background knowledge on this topic. So in the main room, before I sent the kids on their way, I would show some images that are important to the topic. And this particular image is the monument that was constructed and was being dedicated when Emerson read his poem. And this is the monument to the Battle of Concord. And in the poem, he also references a rude bridge. Oops, I don't know how that hand got there. A rude bridge over the flood. And from some research I was doing on the internet, and I think I just got this from Wikipedia, this is the bridge going over the River Concord that he is referring to in that poem. So I think it's important to give those visual cues, especially for the visual learners who can't put or have a difficult time putting words into pictures in their minds. And this at least gives them some perspective of what the heck this poem is about. As they move into the breakout rooms, in the first room I have a little history of the Battle of Concord, some background. I just have a Wikipedia article in here for just to have something in here. Of course, you wouldn't want to demonstrate using Wikipedia in the classroom, but just to get something in here for you to see, I have this article in here. Another thing you could do is maybe find a PBS short or a YouTube video that talks about this, or another resource that has some sort of visual component as well as auditory that you could put into the breakout room on WebTour and have the kids learn about the Battle of Concord as opposed to you talking about it or them reading about it in the LMS. Not that there's anything wrong with that. In addition, maybe for those lower level learners, you might want to do a close reading to help them comprehend perhaps what they're reading in the poem or in the text. This particular close reading that I have in here has nothing to do with Emerson. It's just one that I found. It's interactive, and they can type in their answers here and check it and see if it's correct, and that's kind of fun for them. And you could use this at any level on any topic just to kind of engage them in a free activity in a breakout room when they're done with their work, for example. Moving on, as far as learning about Emerson, you could put on WebTour a interesting article or a website that you know is reliable. This one has a lot of links to give you some history on him. You could send the kids on a web quest through this website so that they're not lost looking through it for an unknown amount of time with no goal in sight. This would require you to preview whatever you're putting in here, come up with a list of questions that they're supposed to find answers to by using this particular website. Also, obviously, if you're going to be working on rhyme schemes or anything having to do with the poem directly, you can set up the breakout room ahead of time where you have the poem put up in there and you want them to identify certain things. They can work together in groups, or you can copy the slide into individual breakout rooms for each student, and they can work by themselves. If you were going to do that, all you would do is right click on the, first you would need to make the breakout rooms for however many students you have. So for example, if you had 20 students in your room and you wanted them each to have their own room, you would make the 20 rooms, and then what you would do is you would take this slide and you should be able to copy it into each one of these rooms if it is in your main presentation. So from the main room, if I go back to the main room, hang on, let me get this real quick. If I go back to the main room, this would involve you having it in the main room to begin with. You have the poem up there. You can let them know, oh, today we're going over this poem. You'll be doing an activity in your breakout room, so it's not new to them when they go in there. You right click on it and you can copy the page to the breakout rooms, and you can select which room it's going to go into. You want it to go into the ones that the students are going to be in, not any of the other ones that you already have set up, and you hit copy. So then when the student moves into that room, the poem is on the board already for them, and they can do whatever activity you want them to do. If you had an instruction slide before this, you would also copy that in as well. So in the breakout room, there's several things you can do with the poem if you have a copy of it on the whiteboard. For example, you could have the students look up where Concord is. This poem is called the Concord Hymn. Have them have a map on the next slide, or have them refer to the internet for a map to locate Concord and New England in general, so that they can understand more of where this time period and the reference for these poems and these authors is coming from. Looking up what the battle monument is that he is speaking at. And the fact that this was sung and not written is kind of, or spoken is kind of interesting to me, seeing that. Another thing that's interesting is that it was written, or it was done on July 4th, and I wonder if that had any significance. I don't know if students would pick up on that necessarily. Perhaps your assignment is that you want the kids to mark up the poem somehow, like circle things that are interesting to them. So I circled the fact that time and nature are capitalized, and I want to ask my teacher, why are they capitalized, or is that something we can talk about in class? Another thing you might have them do is to do the rhyme scheme, and that's something that you can quickly eyeball and see if they're doing this correctly. Of course, you would just you can leave the rooms open even after the students leave, and you can go into each room and see what each student did, or you can go up to the page explorer, and while they're in there you can click on the screen of the particular student that you want to check on and see if they're doing the activity correctly. Another activity you might want to do with the poem itself might be a vocabulary activity, where you have the students circling or identifying words that as individuals they are struggling with. So again, this would be done in individual breakout rooms. They're working by themselves, and you can give them whiteboard tools and have them circle the vocabulary words. Give them a minimum that they need to pick or a maximum so that they're not just filling up the whole thing with circles, and then give them some sort of responsibility with those words uh, when they are done in that room. And last but not least, I have the transcendentalism room. And I thought, as far as giving background knowledge on this, it would be kind of fun for them to do something artsy. And since it focuses on truth, nature, and what's the other one? Beauty. I If you copied this particular slide into those individual breakout rooms for each student, they can do their own sort of collage, and you can get their personal perspective on what they believe these words mean. And then, of course, since it is English and we would like them to be writing as well, have them explain why they chose this particular image for their collage. And then, if you had the time, you as the teacher could compile all of the slides or all of the images that each student put on the board for truth, and you can make a classroom truth board so that you have an idea, you have something representative of all the students all at once based on this one activity. It sort of debriefs that as well. You would not do that all during the same lesson because it would take time to gather all those images, but it can be done. And this is just repeated for beauty, and then as well as nature. It allows them some time with the topic. It allows them to go out into the internet and look for things that are meaningful to them, and it gives them kind of an ownership over this big word transcendentalism, which might be a little off-putting to them just by the looks of it and the sounds of it. So I hope that gives you some ideas of how you could use these rooms with your topic. Thanks.